Welcome to another episode of Spoiled Anime. As always, I'm Joseph, and with me is.
Adam.
And last week's challenge was to watch Sword Art Online, so this is our review of it. And Adam's going to do a brief explanation, like usual, and then we'll go into it.
So, Sword Art Online is essentially starts off as you have all these players entering a virtual online mass multiplayer game um, called Sword Art Online. Once they get in there, they find that their logout button is not available, and find out that they are actually then the creator Kiyaba Ahiko's plan was now they're actually trapped there, and the only way they can get out is to defeat the game, which is 100 levels of this castle, progressively get more difficult that don't unlock till you beat the boss at each level. Also, that if you die in game, you die in real life. And that's kind of the gist of the beginning part of the game, the story, and kind of it all develops from there.
Alright, so before we go into actually the explanation of the. Because it's 26 episodes, so before we get into the explanation of that, what was your final choice? Yay, nay?
Well, it starts out real strong. First half's real good. Second half has some parts that I'm not too into, but overall, yes, definitely watch this one. It's good.
Okay, I essentially the same way. I just kind of like for me, I glossed over the part that we're obviously going to talk about when we get to that of why you're kind of got it, like that question mark over your head of like, wait, what? Um, so so both yays. I know people are waiting for us to say something or hate something. It will come. Just wait. We do kind of tend to go towards things that we like. Obviously, we're not going to just be like, okay, go watch this, even though we dislike it, or So right now, we're drawing upon things that we like. Sorry, just as I said. So
Don't get mad that we're telling you some good shows.
yeah, exactly. Enjoy that we're giving you good stuff, and then you can enjoy when we find discrepancies later down the road. So let's get into this. All right. Um, First episode, as you said. What is his name? Kirito? Kirito?
Kirito, yeah, the main
Kirito.
character, or
Yeah,
Kirito. Yes.
Kirito. Yeah, is his login name. It's not actually his real name, but he was a beta tester, and everybody gets to go in just like in World of Warcraft. They chose their prettiness of their character, male, female, didn't matter. And along comes the warning that there is no logout, and they're all brought back to the starter town. So
I forget. Did Kirito have a different look at first?
yeah, he did. He looked like an older version, like an older, taller version of himself.
Yeah, it
Like
wasn't drastically different like some of the other people.
yeah,
His was like just slightly different. I think he was just like bigger.
exactly. He was just like taller. He like what he might look like in his 20s is what he looked like.
Because I think his character's by the end of it, he's character 16.
Yeah, exactly. Like he looked like he was 22 or something. Um, but yeah, so they find out there's no login or log out, and he meets this friend who winds up showing up repeatedly throughout, and he teaches him how to fight, of course, because he was a beta tester, so he knows where everything needs to be. They all get pulled back to the beginner town, and then they're informed one that they're going to take on their look of how they look in real life. So, now this adds a realism to it.
Yeah, it's a yeah. They can no longer log out. If they die for real. All of their fake identities are now stripped away, and you are who you actually appear as you do in real life. Um,
Which was funny because when you see certain people, it goes around,
yeah.
and there's a guy that's he's like, I thought you were into a girl.
Like, oh yeah, that was a nice little kind of humorous little bit.
Yeah, he's wearing
Um,
like the freaking tutu frilly dress.
but I
Hilarious.
think that the biggest part about all of that is like establishing the stage, I think, of the whole, like, that part, the first part of the show. And I feel like there's a couple themes that go on between both of these seasons, but they're pretty different. The first season, I feel like, that you can have an online kind of, as long as you approach yourself online with a, this one being a forced seriousness. But if with seriousness, you can develop true, you know, real life, uh, benefits, whether it be social or um, aspects, to real life, things he learns and the characters experience in this online reality are just as valid as ones that you would have, say, in the real world, because there is a realness, obviously, of sword art, because if they die, they can die, but they do learn things while they're there, things, social things, and different stuff like that, and I think it is an interesting idea to kind of explore this idea that you could have a serious, real learning experience online, when most online experiences for people are just, dicking around.
Yeah.
Um, but I think the stage they set in this first episode, in order for them to make it real, feel more real, and for you to really believe that you can have those kind of developments online, it had to exist in a world that had some real consequences, like tangible ones, like you could die. Um,
Yeah, exactly.
and I think, because if you treated it like too much like how the real world, most online games and most people just view being online, people consider themselves invincible online. They don't care. They don't treat people the same as they would if that person was standing next to them.
Yeah, and
You
you
know, you
see
know,
that with that one. There's that one guy who's like, every beta tester should come out here and like, give us all their gear because, blah blah blah. It's like, that guy probably wouldn't say that in real life, but he's hiding behind a freaking the mask of unidentifiable. But
I think that one, and that character, I think he's just. I think that, to me, that was more of like an act of desperation, because at that point, I mean, their world
yeah, they
is.
had been there for like 3 weeks at that point, I think.
Yeah, I mean, that is their world now.
Yeah.
What some of them are still adapting, and people killing themselves and stuff. But I mean, that's I think that's it was an interesting topic to tackle, I feel, in the show, and I thought it was a good one. It's just, it was, if it was set in a world where dying didn't matter and you could respawn, I don't think some of those topics would have translated as well.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, people. I mean, you see it, you do hear about it these days. It's not uncommon for people to make friends online, and for people to, you know, meet and potentially even get married, as Kirito does in this with Asuna, much later in the show. Well, about a third of the way into the show,
Yeah.
but at the same time, it's like the only time you see those really develop into good relationships are the people who treat it with, or at least appear to treat it with, a higher level of seriousness.
Yeah, exactly. But I mean, yeah. I mean, I liked it because it was a lot. It had the funny moments, but
Hmm.
one of the most the saddest moment was when Kirito joins that guild.
Oh yeah, well yeah, that's why he becomes a loner for a long time afterwards.
Yeah.
The what, Black Cat Guild,
Yep.
something like that. Ominous name to begin with.
And they, yeah, exactly, ominous, very unlucky name to begin with. And he wants to stay with them, but at the same time he wants to be the one that, to win. He wants to be the one to go out there, so he goes out at night when all of them are crashing out, and he battles and gains his levels, but he doesn't tell them that, so they all think he's around their level. Obviously, I don't know why, because they should have noticed his hit points were probably way higher than theirs. But
Well, it seemed that, like, they could hide their level if they wanted to.
yeah, yeah.
Like, I mean, there should have been some things that they noticed, like his life never seemed to go down.
Yep.
Things like that. But as a whole, like, I mean, he could potentially just pretend like, oh, I died. Yeah.
I'm just that good. But yeah, so he goes out and does this, and then they get the money to buy a guild hall, I guess a guild hall, I think was what they called it, in like one of the lower levels. So the guild leader goes off to go, to do this, and Kirito a little bit of like self confidence, but at the same time he does warn them. He's like, "We probably shouldn't do this," and they're like, "We're fine. Everything's gonna be okay."
He's
And
like,
then
he's
it's
like,
not okay.
I mean, I mean, like you said, it's like a little bit level of overconfidence, probably because Kirito's been there to save their ass before.
Yeah,
But
exactly.
so they just think like, oh, we're just strong enough to handle this. So we get into a little pickle. We might have to struggle a little harder. Little do they know, like, Kirito's only reason that they could fight is high level where they're at as it is. And if they get stuck in a pickle, Kirito can't save him. And this is exactly what happens. They stuck in a trap room where their teleports don't work. And Kirito, while he's able to defend himself and fight his way through, he can't defend everybody.
Exactly. And
And
then you have the female who's I'm not.
Sachi,
Oh, okay. Yeah, and the whole Christmas thing about him going out
that was so sad.
to find to find this. Essentially, it's like the Abominable Snowman Christmas Grinch or whatever.
It's like a mix between Abominable Snowman and Santa Claus, and yeah.
Yeah,
So after they all die, he finds like there's a rumor of this super high level boss that's floating around in the trees, only on Christmas. That if you kill him, you get a resurrection stone,
yeah,
essentially. And a bunch of groups are trying to find these things. The high level groups are trying to find him. And then Kirito's just rolling around by himself because he's super badass like that.
yeah.
And then you see him come back with the jewel. So you see him first face off against him, and then you don't get to see the whole fight. You just see him come back with the stone.
Yeah, and then you find out you have to do it within 10 seconds of them dying. And he just feels like crap, and he like just throws it to his friend from the beginning who he taught how to play. And then
Yeah,
he like goes back to the room, and then all of a sudden he has an item, and it's her essentially like like she foreshadowed, she knew she was going to die. Like she knew that they were slightly reckless and that he was way higher level than them. uh, and that he would survive. And so she was kind of like giving him the motivation to keep going and to not to not feel sorry for her dying.
yeah. Yeah. When he gives the resurrection thing decline, I'm like, that might be a good thing to keep.
Yeah,
Oh, like later when your woman gets slashed,
yeah.
might have been a good moment to have that thing.
I thought Klein was honestly gonna bust it out at that point, and be like, "I'm gonna save your woman," be like, "Thank you, Klein," but he's like, "Oh
I
my,
got you, homie.
yeah, I got you, buddy. We're gonna be okay." Nope. Klein's like, "What do I do with this thing? It's shiny." He's like sitting in the corner. It's like, really, dude? Not bringing any one of us back?
Yeah, he gets I mean, yeah, because yeah, Kirito after defeating that thing by himself, you kind of know like, okay, we already knew he was badass, but now he's facing down things that like entire squads of high level dudes are trying to go hunt down. So he can solo it, and then that comes into play a bit later when they're all hardcoring on something, or they all end up in the middle of fighting the Blue Eyes,
Yep.
like the big Blue Eyes demon thing, and they're getting their shit handed to them.
Now, he wasn't actually stupid and just thought he could take it out. There's a group, an army, that essentially
Yeah.
they created themselves like a confederation, and they were sent up there to fight this boss to move to the next level. And of course, had no chance whatsoever.
Until Kirito. Oh yeah, but a few episodes prior, Kirito had went and acquired a super powerful sword that he wasn't using. So everybody wonders why did he go get this awesome sword that no one wants to use? This doesn't make any kind of sense. So as they're getting their ass handed to him by this blue demon, that's when he says, "I need 10 seconds." Or no, not it's not 10 seconds. Was that the one where he
Yeah,
said
it
it?
was
Yeah,
it was
he
about
goes,
ten
he goes, "I
seconds.
need 10 seconds," and so they go in there and they're all owning, and then that's when Kirito adjusts his kit and reveals that he is the only person who can dual wield and unleashes an ungodly combination upon this thing and survives with merely like a pixel of life, but pretty much solos this gigantic thing by himself.
Yep, and this one level boss by himself and saves these guys.
Yeah, which comes into play later that he actually turns into the damn thing in the next game that they get to.
Yeah,
But yeah, but so after defeating that, they kind of move on and they go. He ends up getting forced into, or he goes and spends some time with Asuna. Um, and or rather, Asuna kind of comes to spend time with him, and then they kind of, realize that they all fall in love and all that stuff, and get married. I think that really get married pretty soon after the Blue Eyes, and then the leader of their clan kind of says, "Well, you can't take my second in command away," which is Asuna, and this is the biggest guild in the entire gaming world, and in that gaming world, and so "Well, you can't take my second in command away." So it works like this: either you're gonna fight me, you're gonna fight me. So either I win and you join us, or you win and then you can take Asuna. And to which Kirito, being extremely confident, being one of the super uber badasses in the game, decides, yeah, let's do this thing. And they kind of square off, and that guy Heathcliff is his name, and he kind of shield blocks everything because that's what he's known for, being like a super guardian who like has never lost. His life has never went into the yellow. He just sits there and takes a beating all day, and it looks like Kirito's about to get the upper hand on him, and then with ungodly speed, old boy blocks with his shield and then slashes him and gets the victory. And
yep,
then that's when he joins the guild again. And then
exactly.
Asuna and him go get married, and they kind of do their own thing for a little while.
Yeah, and that's when they find Yui or Huey.
Yes, Yui.
Yeah.
There, what you find out is well, they find Yui, who they think is just a child who's stuck, and they adopt her essentially as their child. So
Yeah,
not only do they get married and immediately have a child, they have a full grown child. So
exactly. But they live happily, and there's a like that little kind of filler episode where essentially they go fishing for food and they run into this guy and get their little moral lesson. And
yeah, and yeah, so they're all happily together, husband, wife, and child, and then they get kind of pulled into helping out this person um, find a high up who's stuck in the middle of a dungeon.
who was put there by that earlier douchebag I mentioned, who was saying that all beta testers should like bow down to them and feel and like apologize for this whole thing. It was
Big,
that guy. He's a huge tool.
big, gigantic super douche like Kibao or something like that.
Yeah.
And yeah, but and then they get down there and they find this guy's like stuck in this room. Right outside is a boss level character, a Reaper, and they don't really stand a chance. But Kirito's gonna hold them off long enough for them to get away, and then Asuna steps up and says, "No, I'll help you." And then it looks pretty tragic for them. They're all about to get their ass handed to them, and then Yui steps out and goes, "I got this, Mama and Papa." And like steps in front of it, and then the Reaper goes to hit her, and a beacon pops up above her head and says, "Immortal object." And you're like, okay.
Yeah, exactly.
Not a person. And then she starts floating and pulls out some gigantic flaming blade of doom and annihilates the thing.
Yeah, exactly.
You're just like, whoa.
Yeah, and
And
then you come to find out that she was essentially the program that was supposed to alleviate stress in people and monitor them and take them out of the game if something was not going right.
But then, after all the shenanigans that went down, she was no longer necessary and kind of got locked away. But she was still watching everybody, and everybody was sad and tragic except for Asuna and Kirito, who are now married and happy and enjoying their life in this world. And yeah, so then she joins them and kind of becomes that part of them. And then the program tries to delete her, and Kirito acts quickly and saves her file to his profile as a basically like a little gem that's like the soul of Yui
Yeah,
or something.
her heart, like which plays into an earlier thing where Kirito helps this younger adventurer get her pet back by going to this field of essentially flowers that has one special flower that blooms that can bring back people back or bring items back from the dead.
But you have to have an item.
It had to be within 3 days too, or something.
It was like as long as they are an in-game item, you can bring them back.
Yeah.
But yeah, but and then from there they get somebody tries to assassinate Kirito, some douchebag from that was used to be Asuna's protector. You find out he's a gigantic douche nozzle, and Asuna comes and owns that ass.
Yeah, he like poisons the food and like paralyzes them, and apparently kills like the essentially like one of the captains. And he's like, "I'll just pretend that we were attacked by PKers and that you died and I avenged you."
But luckily, Asuna had nothing better to do with her day and was just creeping on them all day and watching their
Yeah.
watching their beacons. And then when old boy disappeared, she lightning blazed her whole way over there and just wrecked his world.
Yeah. Well, and the thing was, he obviously he fights off the poison and like protects Asuna, and then Asuna gets in like, does Asuna kill him or Kirito? I forget.
Kirito gets up and
Yeah,
finishes him off,
but he gets his hand cut off, and I was like, oh shit, does that mean he got his hand cut off permanently? And then next scene, he's got his hand back. I was like, okay, so that just came back, like.
well, I mean, it's just in-game health. Really, it doesn't matter if you get some hacked off. It's still in-game life, so your life can still regenerate.
Exactly.
It's not like you get injured and you're injured forever. But so I mean, that's a nice little in-game mechanic thing that they kind of gloss over. But
yeah, but it was just for me. I was like, that would screw his dual wielding. So I was a little interested, and they're just like, no, he's good. I'm like, okay. It didn't throw me off. I just accepted it and moved on. But
they kind of, I'm trying to remember because at one point in the story before that, they talk about how somebody's like killing people inside of safe zones. Did they ever say who that was? I can't remember.
Yeah. Okay. So essentially what it was. So we're jumping back a little bit, but what happened was this character dies. Like he's hung and he has a dagger or like a sword shoved into him, and he dies. And they're like, oh crap, someone's killing in safe zones. And then you come to find out that it's this guild, so they go and like this other female that was in the guild who was with this guy. She's like, our guild leader went to go sell this item, and then she died, and like nobody knew why or how or whatever. And so like they thought it was the ghost that of her that was doing. No, they thought it was her husband. And getting revenge on all of them because they voted to keep it when when other people voted to sell it, but she went to go sell it because they got outruled. So they thought he was killing the ones that voted to keep it because they thought he thought that they killed her for it.
Right.
But so long story short, they all come together, and it turns out that they were essentially modified items that resembled them, and when the durability of it hit 0, it looked like someone dying.
Mm.
So essentially, that was what it was the durability on these items reached 0 when they looked like they died. So people thought that they were dead, but they really hadn't died at all.
Interesting.
And then it turned out that the husband was the killer. He was the one that, because in real life she was a humble person, but in the game she turned into a warrior kind of vixen, and he felt his manliness had dwindled.
No one likes to be emasculated.
Yeah, so
But so back to where, going back to that. So essentially, at this point, after they get married and all that stuff, they come back. Heathcliff, the leader of their game, their guild, with the Knights of Blood Oath,
mhm.
the biggest guild in the game, decides, okay, well, we're gonna push on to like level 74 or whatever. It's the highest level they're at right now. And Heathcliff is, along with Kirito and Asuna and a whole mess of other people, are gonna take on the boss of this level.
And also
Uh,
to be noted that this does a flashback because the room is one of those rooms where the door closes, no one can hearth out, and so it's
it's a trap
it's a
room.
trap room. Like, so they have no knowledge of what's in there, and they can't send anyone in.
And they sent in a force before them that just got massacred. All that happens, the door shut, and then like 10 minutes later the doors opened and no one was there because everybody
Exactly.
disintegrated and was dead.
Hmm.
So now they were like gonna bring in this huge force to come in and take this thing down. Kirito, Asuna, and Heathcliff to be the frontliners on this thing, and they get there. It shows up. It's just basically a super version of the Reaper that they had fought before. It's like a big centipede skeleton thing,
With two
and
blades.
with two blades. And Heathcliff fends off one by himself with his super defense, and then Kirito and Asuna, when defending together, can hold off the other blade, while the rest of the force attacks the body from all sides and slowly kind of dwindles it down. And after a pressing battle, which is pretty awesome to watch. All the battles. That being said, pretty much all the battles in this show are pretty awesome
Hmm.
to watch. So I mean, they have a pretty good battle, and then at the end, they all come to, like, everybody's like, "Oh, this is cool," and then Kirito looks over at Heathcliff, who has his back turned, and just spear lunges at him. Like, everybody's like, "What the hell is he doing?" And then all of a sudden, when he hits him, big old beacon hits above him and says "Immortal Object."
Yep.
And then you're like, ew. And he's like, and then that's when he reveals, like, I know who you are. You're Kayaba Ahiko. You're the creator of the game. He's like, aren't you? And he's like, oh, well, you found me out. I was supposed to be, you guys were supposed to fight alongside me all the way up, and then at level 100, when you get to the final boss, I turn in, you have to fight me. And then you find out that he was planning for Kirito to be that person who has to fight him at some point anyway. That's why he can use two swords. And suddenly there's a gigantic little little, like, couple paragraphs of exposition to explain everything. Like, oh, I knew this was going to happen at some point. Well, do you want to fight me now, or do you want to go all the way to level 100?
Yeah. He's like,
It's like, well, I'll do it now. And so
it's gonna be boring to wait up there until you guys get there, but I can wait. And he's like, unless you want to fight me now. It's like,
So
oh.
then Kirito starts to open up a can of whoop ass, but then Heathcliff is much more powerful, and uh, and is like starting to beat Kirito. Looks like Kirito's about to go down, and Asuna jumps right in front of it and just eats it, and just bam, one hit, dead.
Yep.
And this is where that little resurrection stone would have been handy.
Yeah.
But
Hey,
whatever.
Klein. Is like, Klein's like, whatever.
And that being said, just before they went off to fight this boss, they both had their little heart-to-heart, like, Kirito saying, I don't want you to go, just in case. And then Asuna's like, what the hell? I'm going with you, because if you die, I'm just going to kill myself anyway. And Kirito's pretty much like, I feel the same way. So Asuna, jumping in front of the blade, just done kills herself. And then,
Yep.
and then Kirito then just eats the blade right to the chest. And he's about to die, and apparently then he decides he's going to break the rules of the game and not die and spear Heathcliff through the chest,
Yeah.
thus defeating the game.
He's like, nope, not dead yet. And they're like,
He's not,
freaking.
not dead. I'm going to die. Nope, I'm going to kill you first. Dead.
He's like, I love that because he just like crawls up on the sword just to fucking get him. It's like, oh,
Going to kill you now. Da. And then, yeah, so that then brings an end to Sword Art Online. Everybody is awoken, all atrophied and weak, except for 300 people from Sword Art Online and 301.
yeah,
One
301.
the one being Asuna, which apparently you find out that her family's company ended up buying all the rights to Sword Art Online. And now they run another game called Alfame Online or something like that. Basically, now everybody's a flying fairy and can use magic, depending on which one of the 6 races they decide to be.
Here's
Um,
what I don't get though. Okay, so yeah, the 301 didn't wake up, and at that point, her father, is the owner of this. I would be like, I don't care what happens. Like, you guys all work for me. Figure this out. Because if my daughter doesn't wake up, guess who's not working anymore? Like,
and then Sketchy McGee is apparently in charge of this world, and just like tries to molest her constantly, both in game and out.
yeah.
and
And the
and
dad's
no
cool
one
with it.
and no one takes notice. Like he tries to be respectable in front of the dad, but it's like, come on, somebody who's that creepy, you're gonna know. You're gonna have heard something.
Yeah, exactly.
like, come on, just. But apparently that becomes the new story, is because Kirito finds her in the real world, and you get to find out that Kirito's actual name is Kirigaya or Kirigaya Kazuto, but Asuna's real name is actually Asuna. She used her real name. But you find out that this creepy dude who works for Asuna's family is running the game, and he's trying to marry into the family so he can take over the. I think his name is Nobuyuki or some craziness. But he
Yeah.
tries to take over the game. He takes over and he's using the game to learn how to brainwash people, essentially.
Yeah, exactly.
And
Standard bad guy stuff.
you know, and then that way he can take over the world. Um, he's just standard,
And of course,
dude
who's he
with
going to sell it to? The Americans. Because we buy anything.
yeah, he's like any, if he has like crazy man with delusions of grandeur. He thinks he's all hot shit, but when something actually happens, he's a gigantic pussy fest.
Yeah. Well, because it
So
was something like, it was his family that owned the servers before that went bankrupt because of Sword Art Online or something. So
and
it
then
was like,
bought the servers.
yeah, and then her family bought the servers. I guess they threw him in as a bonus. Like, I don't know why you'd take the son of the man you just bankrupted and bought out, but
And then
whatever.
and essentially the new game that they're playing, the Alpha Aim Online, is essentially just a straight port over of Sword Art Online as far as all of the general mechanics of the game,
Yeah,
except for
well, it was
except
actually a lesser version. I guess a lesser version of Cardinal, like a previous one.
yeah. But the fundamentals, and
Yeah,
then
yeah,
once they bought it, they essentially ported over all of the
yeah, and built on top of it.
built on top of Sword Art, and added magic
Yeah, exactly.
and
And wings.
wings. You can fly,
Yeah.
so that's cool. Who doesn't want to fly? So they go into this world. He goes, and you find he is and this is the part where is the piece that kind of loses me a little. Not in, I mean, the first half of is so good that I'm willing to deal with the rest. If honest, I mean, it'd be really close to a not watch for me if the entire show was like the second half, because of I mean, it's just weird. His sister in the real world, who's you find out is not really his sister, but they grew up as brother and sister their whole life. But then you find out, like, okay, they're actually just second cousins. But apparently, since they're not actually brother and sister cousin decides that she wants Kirito in real life. Weird, strange, but whatever. And Goes helps her, helps him in the real world. They end up sparring, doing some kendo, and you get to see how Kirito's online sword fighting ability translates to the real world. And essentially, if he wasn't all atrophied and weak, he probably could have owned his cousin.
Yeah. But yeah, and then he's visiting Asuna,
Yeah.
and that's when he gets informed that she's in a week's time, she's gonna marry creepy dude.
Yes.
And then also, that's when he gets the picture from one of his sources from Sword Art Online, who tells the story of how there's this gigantic tree in it, and this cheating group figured out how to essentially like throw themselves really high up on the tree, and they caught a picture of this elfin chick who looks like Asuna, and he's like, "Oh crap, I gotta go back."
Yeah. And then honestly, the second half of the show is kind of a truncated story. So,
Yeah, and essentially, yeah, you come to
so
find out that this
just
guy. Oh, what were you gonna say?
go ahead. Go ahead.
Oh, I was gonna say you find out that essentially this guy never meant for the game to end. He essentially has turned every group onto themselves, like so that no one wants to be friends with any other faction, um, and obviously, and without really knowing it, they go after like Kirito, just kind of like always seems to be at the wrong place at the wrong time to make the wrong enemies, kind of. And so, he messes with the red faction, and of course, they send mages to try to attack him as he's heading to this world tree.
Well,
And,
no, well, it's not. Well, yeah, they do that. Yeah, oh, yeah, you're right. That's when they do send the mages after him.
yeah, and then he, of course, his faction can use battle illusions, and everybody thinks that's useless. And
Yeah,
then
but apparently he can turn into the gigantic demon that he
that he
single
owns.
soloed online
Hmm.
on Sword Art Online.
And then he runs around and just like makes them essentially wet themselves,
Yeah.
uh, and he takes them out. And then Yui comes back as a little fairy girl, who kind of is essentially like the fairy from Link, and though not as
But
annoying.
sent in with way more useful information.
Exactly.
Because apparently, because since she was a part of Sword Art's online interface, and that is now part of this world's interface, she knows everything.
Exactly.
She can sense what's around them. She knows what's going on. Uh, and then, for some reason, he decides he's going to roll around with one sword. Um, oh yeah, he keeps when he goes to the new world, he keeps all of his skills from Sword Art, so he's just as powerful as he was. So
But all of his
yay!
items were gone. Like all of them were.
All of his items were gone, which is sad. But hey, you're not a level 1 character. You're a super high power level character. You know, very fortunate since you have to get to the end in 1 week.
Yeah, exactly.
But so and I think there were some interesting ideas of like the relationship thematically of the real world versus the online in this one. In the second half, it seems like the two worlds, like the first one's, how you can have real, meaningful interaction online,
Hmm.
you know, given the right setting. Um, the second half is more like kind of that interaction of in and out outside of the world, how some people can get lost in it, and but at the same, in Asuna's case, literally lost in it or trapped in it. Um, but then kind of the interaction of how that can affect your real world, and it's a little bit there. And
Well, the thing that was I found interesting was so his sister slash cousin started playing this because she wanted to understand why her brother went into Sword Art Online and got trapped. So which sounds like a horrible plan to me, but that's what she did. And so she had been playing it for a year. So
mm,
while he was in Sword Art Online for 2 years, she for the last year that she was in this game, because she is the first person that he meets, because it's just, as I said, it's that the way his character works is always at the, yeah.
Convenience.
He's got the luck trait, whether it be good luck or bad luck. He's um
I mean, I'd say like in sword art, he does have a tendency to be in the crappy situation, but he's powerful enough to overcome a lot of them.
exactly
In the second half of the show, a lot of things kind of just fall
into
in
his
his lap.
lap.
Like
Exactly.
they work out for him. He happens to for some crazy ass reason he ends up spawning not where he's supposed to, and he ends up right next to his cousin, who then is able to guide him to where he needs to be. But also he's the same level he was as he was in sword art, so he doesn't have to spend the time to level up because he already is that super powerful level. And
Exactly.
then all these like, well, that's just handy.
Yeah.
But yeah, so he kind of gets to blast his way to the tree, like you said. A couple of cool sword fights along the way. He fights the essentially the general of the red faction, or
The
what were
brother of
the
the head
yeah,
faction.
what were they called? They were the, oh crap, because he is a Spriggan,
Yeah.
and then he ends the red faction's coming to kill
This trade
the, the
agreement.
the leader of essentially
The
the
green and the
the green. It's like green and the orange, but like green is because her character's name. What was her character's name? 'Cause- Oh
yeah,
crap.
I'm not even really sure. But while you're looking that up, the one thing we was talking about the real life
Leaf.
and the Lifa. That's right. The real life and the computer game. The there's a and you at this point they also get betrayed, and that's how this general knows about this. And the guy that betrays them is essentially one of her real life school friends.
No, 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 no. He doesn't betray her. He's not the one betraying. He's the one warning them. Like, cause he stays behind to
No, no,
find out.
not that guy. Remember, he like well, no, not the guy that kind of likes her,
Oh,
but the
Recon.
yeah. But remember when they were about to go up to the top of the building so that they could
Oh,
fly away, and it was her party.
oh, the party. So not
Yeah,
a real life, not real life friend. The group that she used to work on. Yeah, they kind of just like boner. Like, yeah, you should.
but apparently, no, the head guy is apparently one of her friends because he, the little guy, when they're outside, when she's going into the school or leaving the school, he was saying, he was saying something about, oh, the other guys are wondering if you're gonna be there tonight. So it's like apparently they're in the same school.
Yeah, I mean, I mean that one. Like to me, it was a kind of, like I said, that the second half of this show is a lot more truncated in my feel.
Yeah,
Like the first 10, 11 episodes has a good kind of flow to it, and then they fight the boss where he discovers that, oh, you know, Heathcliff is actually the creator of sword art, and suddenly a lot of the story becomes super truncated. Like, okay, well, you found out who I was. Now you want to fight me now? Bam, there goes sword art. Sword art's done. Okay, now you have 1 week to get to the end of this game. Now you have to do that. So, like, to me, the second half of the series of this season, or sword art, is a lot more. The story's more truncated. It's not as,
yeah. They
doesn't
felt
get
like they
doesn't
tried to
does
speed it up a little bit,
yeah,
like
it
they were
doesn't feel like you
gonna.
get to explore as much as many of the ideas as thoroughly as they could in the first one,
Yeah,
for the first half. So so just like, it's like, okay, well, now I have to get to the end as fast as I can, and which is fine, and it does work. I mean I understand, because he has to stop the whole getting married thing, but uh, he it's just I don't know, like him happening upon the situation where the general dude comes to fight, kill them, because apparently if you kill the leader of another faction you get 1/3 of their wealth, which then would have allowed them to have the equipment and money in order to um,
attack the world tree.
attack the world tree with some badass gear, which apparently Kirito just rolls around with and just gives away for free.
Yeah. Well, apparently he's like, I don't need all this Sword Art Online money. Here you go.
And then, but when he fights the general, like he's kind of facing off, and sword combat wise, he's probably he is significantly better, but the other guy's still pretty good. He's actually really good, but he has a much better weapon, which is a nice kind of hit to. Um, they kind of hit at the idea of in games of this nature, people with the better gear are just going to be stronger. Um, but at the same time, then Kirito is able to kind of pull it out and show that if you have like a skill set that's not anticipated, then you can still win.
Exactly.
And he snatches Leafa's sword and suddenly goes on his two-sworded awesomeness rampage and kills the general. Which at
Well,
that
he
point,
didn't kill him. He just
well,
actually
he
no, he did kill him.
he,
You're
he
right.
kills him
And
and
then he
then
gets
he
resurrected.
gets, he gets rezzed.
Yeah.
Because in that game, it's not such a big deal if you kill somebody.
Yeah, which
Um,
brings out the whole PvP thing. Because they're in that one, where obviously in the first set or the first half, it was like if you're a PKer, uh,
you're essentially you are a murderer.
you're a
You're
murderer.
a real life murderer. Where in this one, you kill somebody, it's like, it's not such a big deal.
Yeah, there's like a 5 minute or what 500-second penalty or something. I find out later on.
There's a penalty, and there's like I guess they hint at like there's a skill penalty
Yeah,
because like when Kirito first shows up and he kills two of those guys, and the last guy's like, he's like, well, do you want to fight too? He's like, no, I'm cool. I'm about to level my magic.
yeah,
It's like I'll take it. I'll take you on later.
yeah.
So I mean, which is very much how normal games are. It's like, nope, I don't want to deal with the penalty. You guys take it. It's cool. And but um, at which point in that part of the story, then they after they leave that, now Kirito has some powerful allies somewhere off in the world, which comes to play as they get to the world tree. But it at that point, I was like, okay, one, you gave away all your money, stupid. Two, why didn't you use at least some of that money to go and pick up an awesome weapon down so then you can dual wield?
Yep.
It's like, what are you doing?
Yeah.
It's like obviously everybody knows you can dual wield now. Why are you still rolling around with one sword?
Exactly.
You're an idiot. So it's like that part made absolutely no sense to me. But but like I said, from there they pretty much just get to the tree. That's when you find out essentially that that room appears to be impossible, and then Yui senses Mama, senses her, and who has got her hands on a
Card key.
administrator card, and throws it out of the tree, which they get.
Which is pretty good. I mean, she just didn't
Yeah.
even know where the heck they were, but aimed really well.
It's like, I think they're over there.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Everything's gonna be okay
Card,
now.
card skills that would make Gambit jealous.
Exactly.
But yeah, and then Kirito attempts to take on the tree by himself, gets deadified.
Yeah, gets pretty
Uh,
much owned. Like he's
uh,
doing well, and then it just
you're like, he might make it. He might make it. Arrows through the chest. Oh, gigantic swords through the chest. Oh,
yeah,
and you're dead.
yeah. It's like, oh dang, oh.
And then he has this little monologue of, I thought I was invincible. I thought I could do anything. And then Leafa shows up and saves the day. Um, and then
After having a
after
small
after
temper
after,
tantrum from
after,
finding
after
out that it's her brother.
but wasn't it after that when she finds out? Because she's all happy she saved him. And then that's when he's like, well, I have to go save Asuna. And she's like, what'd you just say?
That
She
could
was
be.
Yeah, because then she's like, what did you say? And that's when she has her mental breakdown.
Yeah,
And
I
then
forget.
and then they meet up to go at it one more time, this time with Recon. And they try and go, and Recon pulls out like they're all going in there and they're having a hard time, and suddenly way more of the little minions show up and turn into like a gigantic living wall, stopping them from getting to the top level, and you're like, oh, they definitely did not intend for this to be beaten.
Yeah, exactly.
And then Recon pulls out some super like high level magic and blows himself up.
Yeah, it was like dark
And
magic. It was
yeah,
like the dark magic.
high level dark magic, and you're like, oh, go Recon, you're awesome. And then he blows a hole through the thing. And you're like, okay, he might make it. Nope.
Yeah, and it's like, nope.
And it's like, nope, you're not gonna make it. And then that's when all the other homeboys, all the people he made friends with, show up with all their awesome gear they bought with his money.
Yeah,
It's like
he got
you
none
could
of it, but
you could have had one of those cool weapons, but no.
yeah,
Apparently, you decided I don't need cool stuff. I
you
can
could
do
have
this.
bought a dragon apparently to fly on, but
No,
you
no, no.
totally
A fleet of dragons,
yeah,
apparently.
a fleet of dragons, but
You could have bought at least one and had one of those cool ass swords that shoot beams out. But no.
yeah,
But instead, then you get Leafa's sword again, plow out like a super drill through all the bad guys, and get to the door, which is not able to be opened. Luckily, they have that access key, which gets them in. They get to save the day.
exactly. He gets to Asuma, and
Bad guy shows
bad
up.
guy shows up, and actually, and then of course, bad guy taunting, and then who should
And
show up but the creator
yeah,
and be
Heathcliff,
like,
yeah. The other guys accessing all these. Oh, this is the next magic we're gonna release soon.
gravity. Yeah.
It's pretty overpowered, but I don't see a problem with it. And he's just like owning on them and pretty much just like stabbing them, having fun. He's able to adjust the settings of pain so that way you feel more pain from 10 and he adjusts it to 8. And if you go all the way down to 0, it becomes even more dangerous. And if it's below 3, it affects your body. And he's just like stabbing Kirito and then molesting Asuna and rips her shirt off. And yeah, and that's when Heathcliff shows up and like and then well like at that point you see the bad guy, he's like access code administrator blah blah blah, and he gets to pull out all this kinds of shenanigans, you
Yeah.
know, basically pulling for DM terms a DM bullshit.
Yep. DM
um,
magic. Yeah.
yeah, DM magic. And then that's when Heathcliff shows up and says, no, you're better than this. And then that's when Kirito gets to go, access code Heathcliff. Now I have access to everything and you don't got shit.
Yeah. And then he's like,
And the guy's like, oh no, access code administrator, locked down. He's like, whatever that guy's name is, return him to level 1. Like now let's turn pain level down to 0, and I'm gonna cut you in half.
yeah. And well, he also gives him one chance. He throws him freaking the Excalibur, which
Yeah,
is
he's
like a legendary weapon in the game.
like
And
Schnazzy. Yeah, he goes like, oh yeah, Schnazzy, I can basically I can pull up anything I want with it, just naming it. Sweet. Here, take this weapon. I'm gonna use my normal one, and we're gonna duke this thing out with 0 pain level, with the pain level that can actually hurt you in the real world.
yeah, and then just freaking destroys him. Like chops his arms off, his freaking legs off, chops his off his like mid body, and then stabs him in the face.
Yeah, throws him in the air and then stabs him through his right eye,
Yep.
and kills him. Which at that point you're like, well, if it's at 0 level and it affects your body, that dude is dead.
Yep.
You're like, that guy is just done.
And then he logs her out, and she's like, I want you to be the first person I see, and he's like, we're gonna make this happen, and
I'm
so
coming, and he's yeah. And then he makes his way there, and then as he's running up on, you're like, and then he's all running up to the hospital, and then out of nowhere, slash!
yeah,
This is just douchebag has made it out of the real world. He didn't die. He's all crazyfied.
yeah, and his eyes like all messed up, like his right eye's all messed up.
His eyes all messed up. His barely walk and use his arms.
Yeah,
He's all jacked. And at this point, I was watching it. I was like, oh, like really? You're just gonna kill him now? Like you got all the way this far, and you're gonna kill him in real life? Bullshit. I was like, this is some shit. I was really like, this is, if they kill him right now, I hate the show. And that would have given me given me the big don't watch this show. But luckily, he sees that he's like, oh wait, this guy's the same as he is in the game world. He's a big gigantic vagina.
yeah,
And so
exactly.
catches his hand, punches him in the face, takes the knife, and
And slams his head into the freaking car.
slams his head into a car and debates slicing his throat open. At
Yeah,
which point, again, I was like, oh, don't let him do this. Come on now. Don't go crazy and kill somebody in the real world, and then you can't have your woman. Just punch him in the face a few more times and knock him out, and call the cops. It's like, but luckily he decides not to. And finds his girl, and you find out he gets arrested, and all is happy. And then they spend way too much time of him. Apparently, he goes and saves his wife, and then he decides to spend time with his cousin.
Yeah, yeah.
Apparently, a few days with your cousin is more than enough to give up the fact that you spent probably the better part of a year married to some other woman.
Well, yeah. Well, the thing was, and I don't know if it, but she was still there. Asuna was there. She had different color hair, though.
Yeah, well, she was still there, but like I don't know, the way they portray it, they emphasize the cousin more than they did Asuna. It's like I mean, yeah, they were all there and they were all like together. It's like, yay, we'll have a three-way, good job. But it's like, what? No.
Celebratory three-way. Why not? But what I got from that actually at the end was that he was just trying to because he was saying like through the whole thing it was kind of like I kind of ignored her because of all this, and so I was thinking that he was trying to include her, like not so much as in like he
they,
was
they,
still creeped out with the one part because he
they,
was essentially creeped out by it.
they develop some kind of an intense relationship in 1 week, enough to compete with the relationship that he has with Asuna over the course of 2 years in Sword Art. Come on now, no.
Yeah. Well, I'm hoping that that's not the case. I mean,
like like I said, it's just I think maybe it could have made more sense if they stretched it out a little bit more. But like they trunk, like I said, I mean, it was 1 week.
yeah.
It's like in the first half of the show, it's like I mean that's exactly it. Like how truncated the second half of the story is. The first half of the anime is 2 years. The second half is 1 week.
Yeah.
So
And yet it expands or spans 13 episodes, where the first because it's essentially 13, 13. So 13 in Sword Art and then 13 in Elfin. Um, but yeah, so I mean, yeah, I completely kind of agree with you on that. And but I would say that I'm hoping what they were trying to get across was that he was trying to bring her into his world, not into the sexy time. So, like, I'm just gonna believe that that is what they were attempting to do, and he was like saying it doesn't end here.
yeah,
We're still gonna be, we're still gonna be family, and now Asuna's here, and then we can all be one family, and we can fight on, and go
yeah,
through these other seed worlds.
yeah. I mean, I agree with you. I'm sure that's what it was. But at
I
the same
hope.
time, at the same time, it's just like the whole sister cousin character being romantic interest. It didn't need to be a romantic interest. It really didn't. I think to me, I don't know. For me watching it, I felt it took away from that second half of the series. I mean, you already had enough going on with it trying to take place in a week.
Yeah,
To tackle also another remote romantic interest in the story was too much,
yeah.
in my opinion. I mean,
Well, I could have understood if,
not the
yeah, like if
not,
they had take
not
out that kind of little romantic thing, but just been like she wanted to hang out with him and she was
yeah.
frustrated, so she would go into the game, and then
I
she,
mean,
and then maybe she falls in love with this guy, not realizing it's her brother, and then
yeah.
yeah, and then she goes
Then it could
like,
have just been like a more like comedic. Oh, that's weird. No,
yeah,
instead of like heartbroken Lifa and heartbroken cousin that I just got over not wanting to want you in the real world and now I have to get over it in the fake world too.
yeah,
Yeah,
exactly,
it's just too much. It's just too much for me.
exactly,
It was not enough for me to dislike the anime as a whole. There's some badass moments in it and some awesome action, but yeah, it just was the unnecessary piece in my opinion.
exactly. But
So
all right, so anyway, that's essentially the whole of it, and yeah, as I said, we don't really comment on the manga. Maybe in the manga she's not as brother hungry, but I doubt it. She
I doubt
probably is
it.
even more because
Japanese are weird.
yeah. So all in all,
There's whole animes based on that.
I
So
enjoyed it. We were looking in the thing, and there's actually two more worlds in the manga versus the anime. So maybe there's going to be another half. Maybe not.
I think, yeah, I would if there's another one, I would watch it.
Yeah, exactly. Me too.
Um, it's apparently in manga, I guess it goes to. So they go from Sword Art Online to Alpha Aim Online. I don't know if in the manga it actually shows like in the end of Sword Art, in the end of the animated series, he basically brings back the castle from Sword Art Online and says, "Well, I never beat it. I'm gonna start off as level 1 and I'm gonna beat it this time." And so I mean,
Yeah. And he doesn't change himself to look like the Sword Art one
yeah,
because he's
actually,
showing that that part of being a hero and a beater is behind him.
it's like I'm gonna start over. I'm gonna start over as my fairy character and do this. But in the manga, then after that game, apparently it goes to a game called Gun Gale Online. So essentially, kind of each world expands on the previous. So, well, kind of. So from swords, just swords, and then it turns to swords don't have any magical techniques anymore, but there's actual magic and Alpha Am Online, and you can fly. And then Gun Online, it looks like it goes now. There's guns available, and there's swords, but they're like lightsabers and knives. And then in the third world is Underworld, where essentially the time takes place much faster than it does in the real world. So you can spend 1,000 days in the fake world, and only one day will have passed in the real world. So
So it's
I think
Narnia. Fantastic.
so. I mean, like I said, like to me, it felt like each world potentially looks like it can deal with like different topics of like online to real world existence. Like for Sword Art being, you can have these deep, real developments come out. Second one, just kind of that interplay between the real world and the not, and kind of quirky things that happen. And I mean, how Leafa knows people from the real world. She goes to school with them, and then how her interactions are with them, and both worlds kind of intermix with each other. And then obviously, I don't know what they would do with Gun Gale, but Underworld, they obviously can deal with a lot more. If you could go into a world where you could exist for 100 days for every one day you were here, or 1,000 days. I mean, not just it could drive you insane.
Yeah. Well,
Like
I mean, it could essentially. How could you, like, your reality is essentially warped
this
because a
real world,
1,000 days for every one day in this other world.
the real world would become the dream,
Yeah, exactly.
because you'd only be in our world for a day, or however how long you needed to recharge your body and eat and stuff, and then you could disappear back into that world for 1,000, or 1,000 days, so a few years before you came back.
Yep.
And yeah, I'd be interested if they make it, if they animate it. I'd be willing to check it out.
Yeah, same.
And if I can get a hold of the manga, I'd be willing to check it out. It's good, but we ran crazy long on this.
Yeah, we did. But it had a lot of interesting kind of features to it, that a lot of different facets. But anyway, this is where we'll end. And so, as always, look down in the description for what Adam's doing and what I'm doing. Please subscribe, and we'll see you on the next. Oh, wait, I chose the last one, so it's actually your turn to choose an anime.
Okay, choosing one. Which should we do? Should we do one that we've like, I'm trying to think of one of the old ones that we used to watch, or should I just choose one?
I'd say just choose one, because
All right. Well, then I'm gonna go with my favorite one. So this is gonna be one that I'm gonna say watch also again, but my favorite one. So we're gonna do Berserk.
I figured as soon as you said your favorite one, I was like, "Yep, we're doing Berserk." All right, okay. So that's what we will be doing next week, and hope to see you guys here. Thank you for watching.